What's up, guys? Today, this is my first attempt at any kind of somewhat real YouTube, whatever, and we'll share with you guys my testimony. It was already long enough before, but it got longer. So I feel like it's a story that needs to be shared for the glory of God and for anyone else that might have gone through similar struggles. So here we go. So I came to faith at a very young age, probably 5 or 6, in Wichita, Kansas. We moved here in '85 when I was almost 7 years old. I just naturally had faith. I was on fire for God. Through all that time, I had some things happen in my life. Let's see, starting at about age 4, I was molested by a woman that was my babysitter, who was about 16 years old. And that kind of etched in my psyche. And so, through my life, even as a Christian, I was never a perfect Christian, never will be. I like the women a lot, and that's all part of my testimony. Anyway, we'll get to the rest of that later. But so I've always been on fire for God. I was always kind of the natural evangelist. I used to bring friends to church all the time. I loved it, you know. There was things about it I didn't like, of course, but anyway, staying on track. So I battled with sin and addictions much of my life, even with faith, and God's brought me through all of it. And He's delivered me in many, many things. He's kept me from dying, from self-inflicted reasons and many other reasons. Fast forward a bit to 2011. Graduated Bible college. I was in my mid-30s, early 30s. Got my minister's license. Immediately went to the mission field. I was in China, working with the underground church. I was there for a while in all over the Yunnan province, but primarily in Valley of China, working in Muslim villages. From there we moved on to Thailand, and that's where my heart was absolutely gripped. We went into the Burmese refugee camps and worked with the Burmese refugees all along the border, from Chiang Mai to the border of Burma. The Burmese River literally split where we were. And I don't know if you guys know the story of the Burmese refugees, but you should look it up. It's intense. These people have had genocide threatened against them since World War II. Some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life, and it changed my life. The core of this message that I want to get to is that basically I spent 35 years solid, loving God, doing my best to evangelize and bring others to the saving grace of Christ. Now, during many of these years, because of what I mentioned that happened as a child, there were things inside that weren't dealt with, that really weren't dealt with until my first stint in rehab, only stint in rehab so far, in 2017. Apparently, when I was a child, when this happened, something neurological happened, and had this feeling that I had been conquered by a woman. Now, of course, when you're 4 or 5 years old, you don't know any of that. And growing up, I didn't know most of that either. But one of the things I struggled with the most in my life was women. Falling in love too easy, being in ungodly relationships, etc. Later, that turned into me being married and divorced 5 times. Start the relationship off wrong, whatever, even though there was love and all that. And we start off and we're in a sexual relationship, start getting the conviction of the Lord, and next thing you know, I'm like, okay, well, we need to make this right. Well, through a lot of these endeavors, I traveled for a living. First wife was incredible. 8 years. We had our issues, but we were also very young, and I was still very broken and didn't know it at the time. Second, let's see, during the time between the first and the second, that's when I went to Bible college and got my degree and got my minister's license, and I was single for 4 years. I had met my second wife in the church I was attending at the time, and that's my daughter's mother. My daughter's 8 years old. I had some reservations or whatever, and at the time, I don't know if I was in the best leadership. I loved the people I was with, but they encouraged me to continue to move forward, even despite my reservations, so I did. And anyway, that ended up in divorce a year and a half later. Immediately went on to the third. I traveled for a living at the time and came home and discovered that she was cheating. Physically walked into it. So, second, kind of similar scenario, or I'm sorry, the fourth was kind of similar scenario, and this last one, the fifth, it was just a toxic relationship completely. It was amazing at first. We both were believers. We both had our demons. We both had our issues from the past, etc. Anyway, no time in my life had I ever given more than maybe 2 chances, but for some reason this time it was 9, and it lasted over about 4 years. And finally, it all came to a head. Things didn't go well. So, during this time, this is the meat of the story here. One of the times that we were apart, it was around my 39th birthday. What I realized in hindsight was that through my time in Bible college, I was exposed to a lot of different doctrines, a lot of different theologies, a lot of different denominations, beliefs, etc. And I got to the point, a little over halfway through, where I heard so many different conflicting stories, from the gospel to how you're saved to Arminianism, Calvinism, etc. And I just kind of got to the point where I started getting numb, and I was like, I came to Bible college for 2 reasons. One, because I felt like it was a call on my life. 2, because I wanted to learn more. And 3, I wanted to be equipped to go into the mission field and to follow the will of God for my life. I believed I was supposed to be in ministry. And I am now again, but I got to the point where I started pulling back farther and farther away from the people, from a lot of the teachings, etc. I don't regret my time at this Bible college because I met some lifelong friends that I'll be friends with my whole life. And I got to have some of the experiences of my life that I wouldn't change for the world. But what happened is it opened me up. And when it opened me up to all these other teachings and doctrines, etc., I got to the point where I'm like, will the real Jesus please stand up? Because right now I'm very confused. And that was the beginning of about an 8 or 9 year deconversion process. Well, I didn't realize it at the time. Of course, it was hindsight. From the time I started to the time I finished, I went from a spirit-filled evangelical kook type to a Orthodox Calvinist. And I'm not going to get into all that here, but it was night and day within the body. So anyway, with that and through all of these life changes and divorces and everything else, I was becoming numb. I was becoming very legalistic. I was losing my ability to discern, to feel Christ, to feel the Holy Spirit. And I honestly started getting very bitter and very angry because I was more confused now than ever. Well, fast forward a little bit. It was around my 39th birthday. So on the day, I woke up and I was like, oh crap. I don't think I believe anymore. Like at all. And I never thought that could happen to me. Ever. But it did. And through that process, I was continuing to search for truth and for answers. And at the time, I felt like the Bible, Christianity no longer held those answers for me. Somehow, I naturally progressed into atheism. And I read every book I could find on atheism, on science, on reason, on logic. And it was just months. And I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. I bought it. And it took me down a very strange path. I won't even say that it was dark at first, because I met some of the most amazing and intelligent people that I've ever known. And I can't say that atheists are bad. I mean, most of them aren't. Minus the lack of belief in Christ. And I understand why in a lot of realms, because of either what they've been through or because of circumstances that have happened in their lives. I got deep. I got real deep into atheism. I became very militant. I began regularly blaspheming God. I began regularly challenging my lifelong Christian friends to the point where the majority of them left my social media. They had to. They had to block them or guard their hearts. They had to protect themselves. The thing about me is, when I get passionate about something, I'm all in, and I become a bulldozer. And I got fully educated on that realm. And I absolutely denied the existence of Jesus Christ, and I denied his power, and I had come to the point where I believed that he wasn't real, that all religion wasn't real, any of it. It was all just this mess of teachings from the Iron Age where we were just trying to figure out who we are, why we're here, and our place in the cosmos. And I'll tell you, there are some very intelligent and very convincing teachings in atheism, and it had me hook, line, and sinker. I became very militant. I began debating, engaging in debates. I met some of the most prolific authors in the atheistic realm. We became friends. And I was growing in that path, and I felt good about it. I finally felt free, because at the time, even though through most of my life I didn't have a full understanding of grace, I didn't have a full understanding of what Christ really did. Because I had fallen into legalism, it had become works. wasn't grace anymore at all. And I was in a bad place. I didn't realize at the time. I mean, literally, when I came out, I felt like I was truly born again. Like, literally, all the promises of the Bible, I felt like I got those when I left the faith. I felt free. I felt like I was a human being, and I could be a human being, and that I didn't have to measure up or any of that. What I had wrong is that I didn't have grace right. I didn't have the gospel right because I'd fallen into legalism. And that progressed. Eventually, at some point in atheism, you hear the same arguments, you hear the same teachings over and over and over and over, and you get to a point where, like, is that all you got? Because I'm still hungry for knowledge, I'm still hungry for wisdom, and basically I've expunged everything that you have to give. I had read every deconversion story. There's something like 70 or 80% of atheists were former Christians. It makes sense. So anyway, it progressed from there. I started learning about the Satanic Temple, which has become a pretty large force. They had a Hulu documentary called Hail Satan? ? They were also atheistic. They did not believe in a literal Satan. They were very humanistic. They were very pro-humanism. Basically, everything they were preaching sounded great, and their 7 tenets was top-notch. To me, it was more solid and better than the 10 Commandments, and I fell for that, hook, line, and sinker. I became a member on the international level. I got my certificate. I got my cards that stated that I was a Satanist. I got involved with the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. But that all slowly kind of started going south, quickly started going south. They monitored a lot. If you started mentioning anything theistic or whatever, they started to pull back. Well, I started a site called The Black Flame, which is kind of in a nutshell the term for the power that we're given in Satanism. I started moving towards Luciferianism, and that's more based on the archetype of Satan and him not as an evil, dark entity, but him as a liberator of man from the tyrannical oppression of God and keeping us in the dark. It was a beautiful life. That started getting me into ritual magic, etc. And at that point, I started to connect with some of the most prolific authors and practitioners in the realm, to the point where we were going to start our own whatever. We didn't know. We were meeting on Zoom weekly. Anyway, where this led up, the last 2 weeks that I was supposed to be online with these guys, is I ended up becoming mysteriously sick, where I couldn't get online. I wasn't sick before, I wasn't sick after. But when these meetings were about to happen, I did. I became ill. I couldn't get online. Okay? And they were always on a Sunday. So the second night that it happened, I'm like, what's going on? Well, that night, I had a deep depression. I started getting this feeling that there was a presence in the room. It wasn't a dark presence. It was an old familiar presence. And I had this overwhelming feeling that I needed to open my Bible and just start reading John again. So I did. That night, I felt so broken and so confused. I went to sleep with the Bible in my hand. And I was awoken at 3 a.m. Now, I don't know fully if this was a physical thing that happened. I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was a vision. But to me, it was real, and it actually happened. I woke up to an 18-foot archangel in my bedroom. And when I say 18 feet, I mean from his feet to his hips. His hips were right up at the ceiling. And the rest of him was leaning over my bed. And he spoke to me. He said, Matthew, God has had a call on your life since you were a child. And that call still stands. But you're going down a path right now that you have got to turn from. He said, when you do, all will be restored. And all will be forgiven. He said, God knows your pain. And he knows all of your questions. He said, come back. He's waiting. Let me tell you, when you have an experience like that, and this is an experience that I would have denied, hands down, even as a Christian towards the end, because I didn't believe in that kind of stuff anymore. I was a cessationist. I didn't believe the gifts operated anymore. I didn't believe in all these stories of heaven and hell and all that stuff anymore. I thought it was all just BS. It wasn't BS. This was the only thing that could have happened that could have brought me back. And since I've come back, since that night, I gave my life fully back to God. And everything's been changing. He's been blessing my career. He has blessed my house. He's given me the strength to overcome things. He's given me the strength to start working out again, to eat right, to change everything. And what I want to say to you guys, no matter where you're at, atheism, Satanism, struggle, dude, God is real. He is real, and he is powerful. And he won't fit in any box. Even my theological boxes he didn't fit in. And he's changing my life. I met with these guys, Solcom, Deborah. I found them online. God led me to them. These men have become a rock solid entity in my life. And they're becoming more solid every day. And accountability. Dude, there's a war going on. If you can't see it in the world, you're blind. I mean, the world is falling apart. There is a spiritual war behind all of this. But what I want to say to you is, God is real. He is so real. 4 months ago, you'd have never heard anything like this out of my mouth. I have since repented and recanted. I have tried to chase down everyone I ran off, and God has been good. I feel his presence all the time now. I feel his strength all the time. And I want to tell you, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you believe or disbelieve, there is something greater and bigger than anything that you can think in your mind. And he is willing and able to demonstrate that to you. Call out to him. Even if you feel like it's a joke and you laugh at your words, call out to him. He will show up to you. I promise you. He's given me a new mission. He's changing my life. I'm about to finally write my book. I'm about to go to the ends of the earth like the Great Commission commands. I'm ready to get my minister's license back and be back on fire for him, and I'll never doubt him again. And what I want to tell you is, no matter what you're struggling with, he is bigger. No matter what you believe or don't believe, he is bigger. No matter where you're at in life, you're not too far gone. You're never too far gone. I was blaspheming him. I didn't believe in him anymore. But he got a hold of my heart. He literally left the 99 sheep to come save the one. And he did it on his own. I didn't even ask for it. I wasn't looking for it, but he did. And now my life is changing again. And I want to tell you that he loves you. He knows where you're at. And he will find you too. Thank you guys for listening. There's